everybody. Today we are reading about Nancy the Art Room Turtle. Sometimes people who come to visit Mrs. Hinkle's room get confused. They ask, is he a turtle or a tortoise? Mrs. Hinkle says, Nancy is a she, not a he, and she is a turtle. Mrs. Hinkle and we think there's a big difference between turtles and tortoises. We can't see how people get confused. By the end of a year of art class, Mrs. Hinkle's students will never again be the kind of people who get confused about this. Tortoises live on dry land, but we turtles spend most of our time in the water. But sometimes we like to have dry land to crawl up on. My beautiful glass case has both, along with a nice heat lamp to keep me warm. Nice and warm and cozy. I'm sorry, I fell asleep there under the lamp. Where was I? Oh, yes. I am a mud turtle, so I never grow bigger than 6 inches. This makes me the right size for Mrs. Hinkle to sometimes take me out of my glass case and set me on the table so the boys and girls can see me better. Don't poke at Nancy or try to pick her up, Mrs. Hinkle says. She's very shy. It's nice to have someone else around to explain that you're not unfriendly, but only shy. Mrs. Hinkle teaches art. Even though I'm shy, I like that the children ask if I can come out of my case so they can use me as a model. Mrs. Hinkle gives me a piece of melon or lettuce to munch on so that I will stay still and not explore the table too much while my picture is being drawn. I like to have my picture drawn, but I also like to draw my own pictures. Sometimes Mrs. Hinkle pours food coloring onto a piece of foil and lets me walk through it. Then she sets down a piece of art paper and I walk onto that, leaving colored footprints with my little webbed feet. We don't put paint on a turtle's shell, Mrs. Hinkle says, but a little bit of food coloring won't hurt Nancy's feet. One afternoon, after waking up from a nap and finding that all the children, and Mrs. Hinkle too, had left, I was admiring all the new pictures Mrs. Hinkle had hung up that day. The children would be very excited and had talked about the artist who would be visiting the next day. An artist who was going from school to judge pictures and give out prizes for the best pictures. I think the best pictures are the ones with me in them. But all of a sudden, there was a commotion in the hall, so I pulled myself into my shell in case there was danger. Good thing, because the noise came into the classroom. A dog was barking, a parrot was squawking, a squirrel was shouting, "Help! Help! The nasty, smelly dog wants to eat me!" And a hamster, a rabbit, and a rat were yelling, "Run, Twitch, run!" The wheels of the cart the dog was pulling went squeak, squeal, and the fish tank on the cart were yelling in their tiny fish voices, "School, school!" Even with my head tucked safely inside my shell, I could see well enough to tell that Twitch must be the squirrel, since the others were telling Twitch to run, and it was the squirrel who ran up onto one of the tables where Mrs. Hinkle keeps her art supplies. The dog jumped up there too. So much energy! It nearly wore me out just to watch them. Twitch leaped off the table and over to the bookshelves, pulling himself up on the art in Western civilization, and the dog couldn't follow because the rope that tied him to the leg of the cart wasn't long enough. The dog ran back and forth on the table, knocking over paints and brushes and a box of chalk. The paint was leaking and dripping off the edge of the table, making a puddle on the floor. I liked the slow, thick way that the paint dripped, dripped, dripped. Where was I? Oh, yes. I recognized Twitch, since sometimes I'd seen him look into the window of the classroom. Still, because I'm shy, I'd never talked to him before. But now that he was in danger, I wanted to help. It's scary when someone wants to eat you. I called over, "Excuse me, Mr. Squirrel, sir?" This was very abrupt of me. Turtle manners call for long and slow and proper introductions. But this was an emergency. I said, Don't you have a hard shell you can escape into? Nope, said Twitch, springing from one bookcase to another. Just fur. Fur is not nearly as useful as a hard shell. I asked, do you have a stink gland? Don't I wish? Twitch bounded from the bookcase to Mrs. Hinkle's desk, to her chair, to the floor. My goodness, he could move fast. The dog could move fast, too, but when he jumped off the art table, his fish tank cart swung around and knocked into my table. My case tipped. I pulled all the way into my shell again. My case teetered. I closed my eyes. My case tottered. Over the edge and onto the floor my case went, landing on its side, and I rolled right out of it. By the time I decided I was still alive, Twitch had already escaped into the hall. The dog, still attached to the cart, ran out of the room with the parrot flapping her wings at him, and the hamster, the rabbit, and the rat scurrying pretty fast, too. The dog had left a trail of painted footprints from the table to the door. It was mean of him to want to eat Twitch, but I do have to say he was a very talented artist, and I decided to follow. All right, that's it for this chapter. Tomorrow we will be reading about Angel, the 5th grade corn snake. Don't forget to answer the questions at the bottom. Bye, everybody.